Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at goracing.ie.
You're very welcome along to Friday Night Racing. It's one of the most excited Friday Night Racings of the year because obviously we are into the Christmas season and there's great racing all across here and across the UK to look forward to, and we'll get into the meat of that in a little while. But I'm delighted to say Ted Walsh is our special guest this week. Ted, how are you? Happy Christmas to you.
Good, thanks very much. Same to everybody here.
I was kind of thinking about Christmas in sport. The footballers always they have a small Christmas dinner and then they're called into training and then the next day they have a match in the Premier League. What's Christmas like for trainers and people who work in the industry? Because it's a normal working day most of the days. Yeah,
it's a busy day. It's like a Sunday really. You know, it's the same thing. We race every weekend, so Christmas is no different. It's the same thing. It's a busy time. It's actually one of the busiest times for everybody because everybody's a family person, so they have the commitments of their own household, whether it's your wife or your girlfriend or your children or your father or mother, whatever they are, all those commitments to go, and still they have to do a day's work. And it's Christmas Day, the horses that are going to run on St. Stephen's Day, whether you're in Limerick or Downroyal or Leopardstown, they all have to be exercised and they have to be fed, and all that has to be done on Christmas Day, the same as anything else. Now, you might give them a short enough. Some of the other jobs are put on the side on Christmas Day to give people a chance to get home to have lunch and things like that. But come 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they all have to be fed and watered and make sure they're all right. And a couple of hours then again. So, like, no matter what yard you're in, whether it's a small yard like mine or a big yard like Aidan O'Brien's or Willie Mullins's, there's a lot of lads in, a lot of lads working. You know.
Did your kids appreciate this when Santa Claus was coming early and you were like, okay, well, we're quick, open the presents and off we go?
Yeah, but the kids didn't mind it so much. I think Helen was a bit upset once or twice because I should have been around, not upset, but just maybe disappointed I wasn't there for maybe the morning time. I remember years ago having Harveystown ready to run in the Paddy Power, and he was working on Christmas morning on the Curragh with the late Mick O'Toole, and I went down with him, and I was gone for 3 or 4 hours when I should have been probably 3 or 4 small kids running around. I was being selfish, but I felt it had to be done and I wanted to be there to see it.
Yeah.
And that was it. Now that's only one instant, but it's many, many times, I'm sure, in many, many households when kids are small. And I tell you the truth, you miss it too as a father. I mean, no matter what you do, when you're young, we say in your 20s or 30s, you think what you're doing is the most important thing. But actually the most important thing is watching them grow up and enjoying every moment with them. Not the bread and butter stuff that you think is important at the time, because Leopardstown will be on again, and
Ted Walsh said the exact same thing. Yeah,
they'll go and gone, and you'll say, God, I miss that excitement. The excitement when they all were moving up to the room to see what Santa Claus brought them. The excitement in their face. Like, if you miss that, you can't recapture that again.
Yeah, I was having a few drinks recently with somebody who works in our industry, and he's a veteran of it, like 35 years, and he said, I never give advice, because people who give advice to you generally, the one thing I will say is that I spent too much time working and not enough time with my kids when they were young. And maybe it's just something that we're all realising now at this point.
Well, you're only young fellas yet now, but you'll definitely realise when you get to my stage. Now, you want to enjoy that time of their life, because it's in no length of time they grow up and they become adults, and you miss those special moments. It's like going up to the cot when the little baby is maybe a year old and he's calling for you. It's lovely to walk in and see the expression on his face as he's standing up on the cot, whether it's little girl or little boy, and you're coming to sort of take him out of their loneliness and bring him down and put him in the bed alongside you. That's something you cannot, I don't give a damn who you are, you cannot put a price on that.
Are you getting it back now as a grandparent?
I am. I'm enjoying it. No, I did it as a father as well too, but not enough of it. But I am. I love going up, getting them when they hear them calling up there and calling them in. It's great.
Yeah. Is racing a hard industry then for families? Because who was in a couple of weeks ago was saying that the one thing that they were told was don't marry into racing, and 4 of the sisters ended up marrying into racing.
That was that was
Kevin O'Ryan.
It was, because the Crowleys,
yeah, but they're all married to fellas involved in the game. But I mean, but the only thing about it is, you might say that, but people have got to understand it as well too. I mean, it's like people marrying into farmers, or people marrying into people that have to open a pub on St. Stephen's Day, or people who are in the restaurant business. That's part of it, and you have to understand that as well too, and that's part of the package.
Yeah.
There's no point saying like it's going to be rosy like someone says it'll be fine when we get married.
Yeah.
That's rubbish.
Yeah.
If it ain't fine now, it certainly ain't going to be fine when we get married. Like,
But you see racing, how healthy it is to do. Like, you look at Kevin Prendergast, who's 86.
Yeah.
He's lived a healthy life because he's been out in the air with the horses every day, and it's a great life.
It's a great life. It's absolutely one of the great. I wouldn't swap an hour of my life for anything. It's great. You get up there, work. If you like what you're doing, it's a wonderful life.
Tell us this, because I'll ask you about handing it on and that tradition to your kids in a minute, but where did yours come from? Where did your love of racing,
Well, I was brought up in a house. My father and my Uncle Ted and my mother, they were always involved in. My father came from a generation, his father before him were selling troopers to the British Army,
right.
First World War. They were a dealing family. They had a pub in Kildare, which is between Mitchelstown and Mallow, on top of the hill there, North Cork.
Was that controversial, Ted, actually, to be, not in those days?
Not in those days.
Yeah.
Not in those days. The British Army come over to buy horses for the First World War. There was 7 million horses killed in the First World War.
Wow.
So there was some demand for horses. They'd come back and they'd buy them at the fairs and that kind of thing, and people would come over and buy them. It wasn't controversial. It was part of the whole lot of the system. But that was his business. It was buying them sort of horses, and they grew up in a household. They had a pub called the Corner House in Kildare, and they had a farm down the road a couple of miles, and they reared up in that sort of a household, buying and selling horses, hunting horses, riding horses, and then point-to-point horses as they got on, and the idea was to sell them on, no different than what the lads in Wexford are doing now, the Dials or any of them, point-to-point horses, sell them on, and that's the household I grew up in. And my dad and my Uncle Ted chipped in together, and they moved to Fermoy in 1946, bought a pub there with a yard at the back of it, and continued on to do, and my mother involved as well with that. She worked in the bar, and the two lads, one of them worked in the bar, and the other fellow was out on the horses, and we were reared there. Went to America in 1954, and an uncle who was very successful in America as a trainer. He was champion trainer there many times and leading show jumping rider. He came back for a time in 51 or 2 and said to them, "You'd be better off in America. It's better living in America."
Yeah.
So they up sticks in 1954, all 5 of them, 2 of us, John and myself, and Mum and Dad and my Uncle Ted, and went to America. But my Uncle Ted was 44, my father was 37, too old really, into New York where it was going on. Racing was in Belmont Park, and then when racing was finished there in October, they'd moved down to the warmer climate.
Miami,
they moved down to North Carolina.
Okay, yeah.
Southern Pines, where he had a training centre down there, and they spent the winter there, and then in end of March they'd come back up to New York again. And he thought, at that stage we were ready to go to school and that, and he said, "Where are we going to get a base?" And so the 3 of them decided they'd go back to Ireland again.
Right.
So my mum and the 2 of us came back in that time in 56. No, we came back to Fermoy. When we came back to Fermoy, they had lived in America for 2 years, and Fermoy looked like it stayed stationary.
Yeah.
Because it was so impoverished at the time, the country.
So she moved to Dublin, where her sisters were, and bought a house in Terranure, and we lived in Terranure then for 4 or 5 years. And my father and my Uncle Ted came back at the end of that summer, and they rented the yard in Chapel Lizard. You know where Chapel Lizard is?
Yeah.
And they had access to the Phoenix Park. They didn't have land of their own. So the horses, then we moved out where I am in Kill in 1960, and he bought a place out there.
Right.
So I've been there ever since. I kind of consider myself a Kildare man, even though I was born in Fermoy and lived in Dublin 4 or 5 years, went to school in Sing Street and in the presentation in Terranure, and then moved out, went to national school.
I didn't know any of this. I always thought Ted Walsh Kildare.
I went to national school in Kill, and Liam O'Flynn's father, Liam O'Flynn as well, he was our head teacher.
Right.
And it was a good area for horses, Kildare as well too, and the Curragh wasn't far away, and neither was the Phoenix Park. And we used to have a licence to train in the Phoenix Park. That time you had to pay for the Board of Works a licence, and we'd leave Chapel Lizard, go into Chapel Lizard Gate there and gallop in the park, and then of course the Pope arrived and shagged all that up by putting a big monument inside the middle of it, and we couldn't use that anymore.
Every time I pass the Phoenix Park now, I'm just thinking, because I live so near it, Jesus, was a race course here, how great
amazing.
would it be?
It was great. So that was it. And then we moved out to Kill 1960, and I've been there ever since, so I consider myself a Kildare man.
Yeah. So you had an uncle who was a trainer. Was that your dad's brother?
Yeah, my dad's brother, Michael. Very successful. He was champion jumps trainer there 7 or 8 times.
So there must have been racing in their family.
But as I said to you, they all reared up with horse background.
Right.
He went to America, fell out with his father sometime in the 20s. Himself and a brother, Jim, went over to America. They knew nothing on any horses. Jim started up a riding school in Great Neck, which is in Long Island. And Mickey started riding show jumpers. He was a young man then in his 20s. and he was champion professional show jumping rider.
Wow.
Road winners in Madison Square Garden and all over. There's even a book on him, a horse called Little Squire that he bought out here, went to America and jumped all around him. A woman, multi-millionaire down in North Carolina called Mrs. Kennedy owned him.
Right.
She bought him from here. Dan Curry, who was friendly with him, got him to go to America, this horse. He made a fortune at the time. She bought him and he rode him, and he won a lot of show jumping all over. He's kind of a famous horse, Little Squire. He rode him, and then when he stopped show jumping, he went training horses.
Right.
And he was a champion jumps trainer there 7 or 8 times. And then a son of Jim's, who had a riding school in Great Neck in New York, his son Tommy went riding for Mickey and he became champion jump jockey in America 7 or 8 times.
Okay, right.
And won 5 American Grand Nationals. So there's
something in the genes.
It's there. It's just a horsey background. It's people who rode horses and just in it. That's what it is. It's just there. And that's what it was. A lot of people who went to America from here, anybody who was connected with horses that decided to go to America would get ask my father for Mickey's address, because a base, and he got a job. People don't realise how difficult it was that time. It was expensive. You go by the boat. We went by boat to America, and we came home by boat.
Yeah.
8 days on the Mauritania and 9 days coming home, like in the 50s. But when they started flying horses out, if you could get a trip out with a horse, you get a free trip to America.
Okay, right.
So my father made connections in America, and he was selling horses in the late 50s, 60s to America. And of course, the lads there'd be a ticket going out. So fellas that maybe wanted to go to America, and they'd get a few quid to go as well.
Could bring the horse.
And they'd land in America, and then of course they wouldn't come back.
Do you remember much of America as a child?
As a child, not that much, but I was there in the 60s. We went out, a bunch of us, a pal of mine from Kildare, Eddie O'Connor, and a cousin of mine, Tom, and my father. A crew of Americans came back and bought 16 or 17 horses mostly off the McGrath family, and different horses, and we went out with them on a St. Stephen's Day to America. I remember 1968 it was. And we arrived there. I think it was cold here. It was absolutely bitter. We arrived over and they loaded all these horses up into the plane. Michael O'Brien's brother, Michael that was in the wheelchair, he went out as well that time. And we arrived.
He was a right good jockey out there, wasn't he?
He was champion jockey there one year. And we went out and we arrived. And I remember getting into the back of a wagon. We were going to Southern Pines, which was 600 miles away, in a lorry. And we were in it for about maybe 3 hours or 2.5 hours, and he stopped. And I said to the van driver, I said, "Are we there yet, son?" He says, "We ain't even out of the state of New York." 2.5 hours in Ireland, like you'd be in Killarney or something. But yes, we were frozen. I'll never forget it. And and I've been back dozens of times since, the Breeders' Cups and everything. But it's a great country now. I mean, I wouldn't like to live there, but it's a great country to go.
I'm the same. Yeah.
Huh?
I'm the same. I wouldn't. I'm not sure I could live there, but I love going there.
I love going there. It's a great buzz off, and there's so many countries in one country.
Yeah.
You could be. There's one type of person in New York, and there's a totally different person in California.
And Carolina as well.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, Friday Night Racing is brought to you by GoRacing.ie. You should check out that website if you are planning to head to wherever there is racing over the next while. That will give you all the fixture lists and all the runners and riders. Ted, people from my generation know you mostly as a trainer and on the telly, but actually...
Mostly as a telly, I said. My career as a trainer is quite enough.
But as a jockey, you were a brilliant jockey. You held a
I was an amateur now. I was an amateur. Yeah, I wasn't too bad at that. The opposition wasn't as hot as it is as a professional. And like any fella, if you get on the right horses, it gathers momentum. I started riding. Rode for 2.5 years and never rode a winner.
Right.
Got a license in 66, rode at Leopardstown, and it was 2.5 years before I rode a winner, so it didn't happen overnight.
The point-to-pointers that were that your parents had, was that your first kind of I'll just hop up in one of those and school it and go, why you like this?
Not really. You're reared up at the yard. You're 8 or 9, you're out around the yard, you're riding a few ponies. And
you want to be a
jockey.
jockey?
To be 10 or 11, you get into riding older. As you get better, you ride the older horses, and then you get the hang of it. And then you're either good at it, or you're like it, or you're not.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is not to lose your bottle. You know what I mean? If you get run away with it, you get a fall, that you're not nervous about it, that you want to get back up again.
Yeah.
Like the lads playing rugby or that, they don't want to crawl out the scrum and want to go home to mammy.
Yeah.
You know, want to get back in again.
If you lose your bottle, you're gone.
If you lose your bottle, you're gone. Now, I didn't lose mine. I lost my ability, but I didn't lose my bottle. But it was great, and I rode as an amateur. I was 10.7, 10.9, that kind of weight. And that time, the bottom weight was 9.7, and I figured if to make a living, you'd want to be able to do the less than 10 stone. But that was wrong. I could have made a living, maybe not a great one, but I could have made a living as a professional. And I regret not being a professional.
Really?
How good would you have been then relative to the other professions of that time?
I don't know.
If you're riding day in, day out as well.
Bobby Coonan was champion jockey, Tommy Carberry was champion jockey. Frank Berry. I might have been as good as them now. I definitely wouldn't have been as stylish as Frank.
You'd have had a career though.
But I think I would have had a career. It would all depend on the move you made. I mean, if I'd have got into a top stable, like we say Peter McCreary at the time, he had loads of winners. It definitely was as good as some of the fellas that rode anyway. Definitely as good as some of them. Some of them were terrible.
Would you have had to go to England?
No, I wouldn't. I might have had to go to England, but I don't think I would. I think I would have survived at home with that kind of thing. But you see, I was champion amateur and I was safe.
Yeah.
I was as good as any of the lads riding, and I was safe. And I rode a lot of winners. I could ride 35 or 40 winners a year, which was, other than being champion jockey, one year I rode more winners than actually the champion jumps jockey rode.
That's mad, yeah.
Yeah, and then I was safe, and I didn't say, like, there was no point in sort of, like I don't know, I was just being safe, not being maybe ballsy enough to turn professional. Fellas saying, you're a success at this now, there's no point leaving it, like, you know.
How low could you have gone weight-wise?
Sure, I don't know. I was always struggling now at less than 10.7. I'd done 10.4 and 10.2. I remember one time I got a ride at 10 stone. And claim 5, which was 9.9. Now, which was way below my weight. So I did the... John Crowley, Lord of Mercy, and he's dead now. John Crowley says to me, "You'll do that," he says, "take 2 of them." I said, "What are they?" Oh, he said, "No bother," he says, "take 2 of them." So anyway, I was about, God, we said waist down to about 9 stone 12, which was as light as I could get. Now, you want to be 9.12 to do sort of 10 stone 2 or 3. You have to give yourself £5.
Yeah.
So I still was a bit away. So I took one of these, I took one of them, I think. They were Lasix, P tablets. Jesus, I couldn't wait to get to the toilet everywhere. I was going down to Mallow. I had lads to stop in the car going down. And by the time I got down, my 2 cheekbones were sunk back in my mouth. I would have been dehydrated. And when the lads in the car were talking, the lads that went with me, Liam and Eddie and a few of them, Bertie, when they were talking, I thought they were a mile away. It was a hollow kind of a sound. Oh, I never took them again. Nearly died. But I mean, I don't the weight. Yeah. But I was only a passenger.
But is a jockey not better off doing over than wasting himself?
Yeah, but you won't be allowed to do over.
You can say if you do a pound or 2 over rather than wasting.
But nowadays you can only do £2, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they have the Turf Club bought out a thing there a couple of years ago that you can't ride unless if you're more than £2 overweight, unless you have special permission, and you have to declare that £2 the day before that you might be £2 over. And I was totally against it. I think it's a ridiculous rule because. They were saying, the punters need to know. But if the punters know the day before that you're going to carry 5 over, that'll do. They know if they have Pat Smullen or Ruby Walsh or Barry Geraghty, he's supposed to be doing 9.12, but he's actually going to do 10.3. So once you know it the day before,
factor it in.
You should be able to dig it. If Dermot Well wants Pat Smullen, we say Pat Smullen's lightest weight is 8.7. But Dermot wants him to ride a horse at 8.12. Or 8.7, and the horse only has 8.2.
Yeah.
He might say, I'd rather have Pat on him at 8.7 than some fella on him at 8.2.
Yeah.
He should just say, Pat Smullen rides him and he carries 8.7. That's simple as that.
Yeah, and everybody knows. Once everybody knows.
Everyone knows. You're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes.
Yeah.
Everyone knows. He's 5 over.
Yeah, the weight is the killer for them. Like, and I always worry about jockeys, just the wasting they do long term, what they're doing to their body, like just to make a ride. Yeah,
well, see, some of them are naturally, like Wayne Lorden or Rory Cleary or Niall McCullough are naturally lightweights. And years ago, but generally fellas I was watching young lads coming out in Dundalk the other day, and they're all tall young fellas, you know. I mean, Donica's done a great job, and so did Joseph, to keep their weights. Now, I mean, they were riding good horses, but they had a great grasp of it now to do that, you know. And it's hard on a fella's body. You can do it when you're young, probably.
Yeah,
you know
we had Donegal in, and he was talking about the 24 hours previous to that. He'd had a slug of Red Bull and a couple of jelly snakes.
Yeah.
That was in a day and a half.
Yeah. Well, that's a fella's. I mean, that'd be a common thing, like, for fellas, like, and that doesn't. I mean, fellas sound, you had nothing to eat yesterday. There's thousands of people in the country not in date, like, in the world, not in date for about 3 weeks, and they're still alive.
Yeah.
Like, because you had nothing to eat yesterday doesn't make any difference. And a fella says, I'm starving. Starving. Even if you have to have his breakfast, you're talking about 6 o'clock in the evening, I'm starving. Like, it's
relative.
It's relevant, you know what I mean? It doesn't make
what's
any
happening
difference.
in Yemen,
Yeah.
Take us back to your career as a jockey, because they're like. You obviously had enough connections to get the good horses to be able to win big races as well.
Well,
you were good enough. Like
connections is a ton. When I started riding, my dad was much the same as we are now, a handy stable. But in 1966 I rode. It wasn't probably much good, and didn't ride any winners until 69. But my dad in 69 late 69, had 3 animals together that he bought. Bought a horse in Caramee Fair, which one of you would have known about. It's a fair down in Buddhavant on the 12th of July, off a man called Kevin Healy, who's actually a grandfather to the Townsends now. Do you know what I mean?
All right.
Yeah, but Kevin Healy and my dad knew him. Bought a horse called Ballyrichard again that had got beaten a couple of bumpers, and Kevin thought there was something wrong with him, a weakness in his heart. And Uncle Ted bought him for 150 quid for me to ride him in Point to Points, young Ted. And he had a mare a horse he bought off of Larry Keaton called Shamunda for about 800 quid, which was good money at the time. And we had a mare we bred ourselves called Star Vision out of Sailor Star, who I had ridden as well. Star Vision went on to be a good brood mare. And the three of them arrived together, and I was just I'd ridden 5 or 6 winners. And the three of them were nice horses, and they won 12 races between the three of them.
Wow.
Like that. Shamunda won 4 or 5 off the trot, and so did Ballyrichard again. And they all won at the now Leopardstown meeting, but it was moved to Fairy House while they were doing up Leopardstown. And they won real good races. And all of a sudden I went from being a nobody to riding 12 good winners at the good meetings at Leopardstown.
On your own horses as
well?
well?
On our own horses. My
right.
dad sold all 3 of them the following spring because they were for sale. But I rode 12 winners on them, and then fellas rode other horses. That time you lost your claim when you rode 15 winners. And I lost my claim on Shamunda, on Ballyrichard again, on St. Stephen's Day, and rode the other 2 the next 2 days without the claim.
Right.
So then fellas started. Peter McCreary, which was a great supporter of mine, and I knew him well, rode for him and for Paddy Osborne, who I knew as well. And it just took off from there. And there was the real senior lads, late Francis Flood, who was the senior man then, and Bill McLaren, who's still alive. They were the top dogs, and they were getting to the end of their career, and there was a new batch coming on, and it just worked out that way. I got on the best horses. When you're riding the best horses, whether you're Ruby Walsh, Barry Geraghty, Davy Russell, or Mahatma Gandhi's mother, you'll win. The best horse.
Do you tell them that? Does Ruby
they know
say,
that well.
shut up that?
They know that well. The best horse leaving the parade ring usually wins,
right,
unless something happens to him. But the best horse usually wins. He may fall or he may run below himself.
If you're to define one thing that separates, like I'm watching a race the other night and I thought the jockey, the split-second decision whether to chase the pace, go for the front or take a pull, and I thought he sort of procrastinated for maybe a furlong and didn't really know what to do. And I was kind of wondering what defines the right good jockey from the good jockey. Like, is it that split second, knowing the right thing to do?
Just brains. It's what makes a difference. The real top fellas most of them are very good to ride. Most of them are well able to hold a horse, sit into a horse, and do all them things. But the real top guys, the Frankie Dettoris of this world, they have an innate able to read the situation, like Johnny Sexton. Johnny Sexton's great rugby players, but Johnny Sexton's a bit special because he can just read the game differently than most fellas. And I think that's what, and the same way race riding, some fellas can read it as well, just that bit better than anybody else. You know, because some people look better and they're more stylish, and some fellas are strong. Now, if you have the whole package, if you have guts, horsemanship, style, strength, bottle, and brains,
you're Ruby Walsh.
Yeah.
Well,
can I ask you about that then? Because that the brains bit, how much of that do you train with experience, and how much of it is unconscious? What's that balance?
I'd say
I don't think you can teach that. Really,
I agree with Johnny. I don't think you can teach that. You can't teach fellas to be Michael O'Leary. Do you know what I mean? He just has that innate way of being able to see around the corner, or the likes of JP or Dermot Desmond or the man who owns this place here.
Yeah,
do you know
Dennis
what I mean?
O'Brien.
Dennis O'Brien. They can just see around the corner, and there's only a handful of people can see around the corner, but they can do it.
Can you condition yourself though as a jockey to go, okay, I've been in this situation before, or is it you see a gap? Is it like
yeah?
I'm using see a gap as a euphemism, like a footballer sees a gap and they go through it and they're through it before they even know it. But
well, the same way riding a horse. If you're riding a horse tomorrow morning and you're following, we said the 15 or 16 runners, and you're down the rail, and the guy in front of you, first of all, you have a look and see is a good rider. It says Davy Russell or Ruby Walsh, left-handed track. He's sticking his right hand, and our horse is galloping away, and he's not going to come off that bend. You know he's not, because he's ready for the bend and he's ready. He's not going to move out. Have a look and see who's in front of him. It might be Barry Geraghty, sticking his right hand, left-handed track, horses jumping dead straight. Unless you're a clown, unless for some reason they drop dead, they're not going to let you through there. Now, if you're behind a fella who has sticking his left hand on a right-handed track and the horse keeps jumping to his right, at some stage, if you're wide enough, you'll say, when he comes under pressure and he goes from, he's a certainty to go right, and I'll jump through his inner.
right.
You've got to read, it's like stuck in 3 lanes of the motorway, up along, and you're looking, there's a fella up there with the red lights on, he's braking every minute and getting out from behind him. Doesn't know where he's going. He starts looking around him. It's like driving a car. You read the situation, and the good lads can read it quicker. They can all read it.
It's the one thing that I don't think people get that don't follow racing, is that every race, it's so random what might happen in that race. And like we'll say, even the Breeders' Cup, some of the potential team tactics that was going on in some racing, that Frankie Dettori riding an Able, so he has to kind of write, how do I react to this? And that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. He was there watching Wayne Lord on his outside, and he knew that Wayne is there maybe trying to just keep him comfortable, keep him busy. Not going to give him a freebie, and all of a sudden he can read it. But the good fellas like the Tory can read that. As I said to you, Tory is a great racing brand. The Tory is probably as good a flat jockey as any of us will ever see. You're only 2 young lads. Appreciate what you're looking at, because the likes of him don't come along too easy. The bigger the occasion, the better he rides. He just can read the situation, whether he's lobbing along in front. Now he's everything. He's an artist on it as well.
Is he getting better with time, or is
he's not getting better, but he's well able to. I said the occasion doesn't bother him at all now, and he's come through a few old tricky patches and still come out the right end, and he's riding for a great man who understands the game as well. You need somebody as well that when you do, everyone makes a cock up, like I'm sure you lads do. You don't want some fella when you go to the door to give you a bollocking over something that
you know
what I mean. And when people say Mick wants it more than Jack wants it too, but it just didn't happen for Jack that day. Do you know?
The jumps jockeys of this year, we'll say, if you go back to nearly Paul Carberry, how would they compare from your experience? Like Carberry, Geraghty, Ruby and Davy Russell.
I'd say the 4 or 5 lads that you mentioned there, and throwing Puppy Power as well, they're as good as ever was. I don't think any of them are any better. I think they're a great good bunch together.
But style has evolved as well, hasn't it? Like jockeys have kind of gotten more stylish.
Yeah, but Bobby Beasley was very stylish now in the 60s. Very stylish. But Frank Berry was more stylish than any of the present riders.
Really, yeah.
More stylish. Yeah. Frank Berry was poetry in motion to watch him. Do you know what I mean? Left or right hand. I remember Frank jumping the last one, they had Punchestown on an owl horse. And if he switched, now it's not too long from the back of the last to the winning post to Punchestown. And I think Ruby is good at it. And I think a few of them are good at it. But Frank, I'd say he changed it 5 times. Like, you couldn't see him change it. Young Jack Kennedy is very good at it as well for a kid. Do you know? It's great to see them able to read the situation. Like, Frank was a supreme stylist because he was a stylist. If Frank had been light enough, he'd been champion flat jockey. Do you know, he was everything you'd want, plus having a brain to go with it all as well too.
Yeah.
I think what he's talking about there as well, like as TV gets better and better, like to be able to find down the years, hopefully to come, to be able to show little things like that in slow motion and to focus in on what jockeys are actually doing, because we sort of see the replay, we might see the head on, and then we go back into the parade ring, but there's so much going on.
So much going on is right, and you'd like to see it. And some fellas are good now. Ruby is good at it, explaining what went through. You need a fella as well too, and they need the current lads riding that, or the people they know. Like, you know, get an old fart like being to set up along. So you explain what he done. The older generation that know I rode. You know, but fellas say, does he know what he's talking about? Like, you know, but that's the what sort of way it is. It's that, but it takes someone to explain. Like you have the good fellas on the rugby or the soccer explaining why. Donald Lenihan is lovely there now when you listen to him explaining why a fella did it.
It makes a big difference.
It does. Yeah. Like, why did he do that? You know. Yeah. Now, and that's what you need, someone to those sorts of situations. You know.
I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to enter our competition here, and then we'll come back and talk about the training as well, because we haven't got to that yet. So the Tote.com are sponsoring the opening and closing races on St Stephen's Day at Leopardstown Christmas Festival, and they want to give 6 people a great day out on the first day of the Christmas Festival, which includes admission and dinner in the 1888 restaurant for you and 5 of your mates. To enter, just get on our Facebook stream now and answer this question: which jockey is currently leading the Irish Jump Jockey Championship? And we'll get in touch with you a little bit later on today. The joy that you get from winning a race as a jockey versus the joy that you get from winning a race as a trainer, it strikes me that one is kind of instantaneous and not disposable, but the other one is like a kind of long, slow, steady build-up that leads to this massive.
There's definitely more pressure as a trainer, because you have the well-being of the horse on the build-up to it. You know, the jockey, or he might pick the right horse or whatever he does. He makes a decision on the day. He's got maybe 5 or 6 rides, and if he makes a cock up in race 2, he might be able to fix it on race 3. But the fellow with basically the fellow with 1 or 2 horses, and he goes to Leopardstown at Christmas with one geared up for the Paddy Power or something like that, and he's happy with him, and everything has to go well, and he knows well there's 30 runners there. He's got to get a run, and that might be his only day, his big day. And if it goes well, the relief along with everything else, is great that everything you've done up to now, you go out to see that he's finished up, his last bit of work, was everybody happy with him, were you happy with him? You go out to look at him to see that didn't take a bit out of him, did they give him enough to leave him right, or did they give him too much to take the edge off him? No matter who you are, you just wonder. Even the great trainers like Aidan or Willie wonder like if it's all going to go right on the day, because for some reason something might go wrong and you say, how did I get that wrong? I'm sure Aidan with Saxon Warrior was frustrated several times this year.
Such fine margins as well, do you know that committee?
Like, it's great when it goes up and it wins. And
do you remember when Foxrock ran his first handicap at Leopardstown? I remember Ted came in, I think we were in Clonmel or we were somewhere down the country, and I was telling Ted I'd backed at 14-1. He said, geez, that's a right good bet, I'd love to have some of that. And I said, I don't have enough on to give you any of it. But he turned up in the day, everything went absolutely perfect, and Harvey, Tony Martin had one to do him.
Yeah.
And it's just, even when the horse probably couldn't have been in better nick.
No.
Just one little thing can possibly go wrong.
And he probably had £10 up his sleeve.
Yeah, and he was still beaten.
Yeah, he was still beaten. He carried £5
Living next
extra.
door beat him, I think.
Yeah, he kept £5 or £6 extra the next day.
And he ended up running well in grade ones down the line.
He won the Leopardstown Chase 3 weeks later with £6 more on his back and won well. Ended up getting beat off a 144, but actually being nearly a 160 horse. But then Colbert Station went another year, who I thought wasn't as good a horse as Foxrock. I thought he had a good chance and he bolted in. You know, it's just... And I mean, that horse I mentioned to you, Harveystown, that my dad had, it used to be the Findus. We had him spot on it, we thought, and he won too as well. But you get other horses then, just as you say, fine margins, horses just can get done on you, you know.
Is that, just doing some research ahead of this, people would talk about you have a great ability to target races and to present the horses at their absolute peak at the right time. Is that fair to say that would have been your strength as a trainer?
It's a bit over the top, I'd say. I haven't got as much ability. I would like to think that at this stage of my life, I know when a horse is in good order, and you'd always have to leave yourself. If you're aiming for Leopardstown at Christmas, you can't have him at his peak the first run in October. You have him as close as you think, and then you get another run maybe into him in November, 3 or 4 weeks later, with the view to having them spot on for Christmas. Like anybody, it's like the good football teams. They don't come out the first day 100%, but they have to be fairly close to it in order to get through to the next round.
And to know what's left.
And to know, like an old horse, the greatest for most people training horses is you get to look at them every day. I wouldn't be able to handle any more than what I have, 15 or 16, but you pull the rugs off him, you look at him and you know sort of healthy wise how he's eating up. The horse is eating well, you know how he is, his well-being, all those things, and you sort of put all them together and you know it. I give great credit to the people who can handle the big numbers, because it's a huge responsibility. Like, it's one thing to handle a few and maybe do a good job with it, but these fellas can do it with 150 and 200 horses.
I can figure out how they can do that. Like, to still have the eye to know.
That's what I'm saying.
You can delegate, but you also have to know yourself.
You have to know yourself as well, you know.
But do you feel like you've got generations of knowledge when you're looking at the horse, and that?
I have a good enough knowledge. I know when horses look well and when horses don't, and I know what a nice looking horse is in my eyes, and I know soundness. I'm probably a little bit too brought up in a place where it was most important that the horses were sound, and because you were going to sell them on, and I'm probably a little bit conservative. I remember Paddy Mullen saying to me one time, we were sitting at a table and I was talking to him, that's Willie's father, and I said to him, the worst thing, Paddy, I said, is when you go out at night. Now, a lot of us that live near the yards would go out around 9 o'clock or 9:30, have a look to see if everything is all right before you go to bed. And Paddy says, when you go out, Paddy used to go with a flash lamp and he'd shine it around, make sure they were all right, maybe they ate up or that kind of thing. And I said to him, I said, and when you run your hand down along her leg, I said, and you feel something, I said, that's some sickening feeling. And he said, I'll tell you, give you a cure for that. He said, what's that? He said,
don't do it.
Don't feel it. Because he said, the only person, he said, that's not going to sleep, he said, is you.
Yeah.
He says, because you can't contact the owner. It's too late for a vet. So he said, the only fella, he said, that's going to have a sleepless night is you. So wait till the morning. If you haven't done it, if you haven't felt that, he said, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, don't bother your Barney, he said, at 9:30 at night. He said, I spend too many nights, he says, rolling around in bed, he says, and he was right, like, at that hour of the night, like, what can you do? Only have a sleepless night to say, what am I facing in the morning?
When you said looking at a horse, you can judge a horse in your eyes. What's the main thing you would look at, or what's your big no-no when you're looking at a horse physically that you?
Well, colour. I hate to see a horse gone of his old coat. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's like hasn't got a bloom. And I love when I pull a rug off a horse that I can see health. You know, it's like looking at somebody. You say, "Fella, geez, that fella looks great." And you see a fella come in the door and he looks grey. You mightn't say anything to him. You say, "Ah, you're in great old form." You'd say, "Geez, I met Johnny so-and-so the other day. He's a horrible colour." You know what I mean? You know? And you say, I would be surprised if there's something wrong with him. And it's the same way with an old horse.
Yeah.
You pull off the rug off him, and it's the same innate ability that mothers have with kids. They don't need. If the mother has to go to the doctor, she's usually right to something wrong.
Yeah, you can tell.
You shouldn't underestimate him now as a trainer. In fairness, for the numbers you had, you were well able to get horses right.
And they were good horses.
Had good days, Comanche Court, Papillon,
but
also even Foxrock and.
Yeah, we lots of them. Leopardstown's been very good to us. Rinkaree won 2 Ericssons. And Comanche Court won plenty of races there. Papillon, Southern Vic, they all won Grade 1 races at Leopardstown.
Who was your favourite?
Oh, Comanche Court.
Yeah.
My favourite horse that I'll ever have anything to do with.
Why?
He was the kindest horse that I ever had anything to do with. And when I wanted him, he delivered. I badly needed him in the Triumph Hurl. He stuck his head down and ran to the line. And he was just a great horse. And when he worked well, when I backed him, he never let me down. I thought he had a chance in the Triumph Hurl and he won. And he was just, if he worked well, he'd run well. And if he worked bad or worked, you'd be making excuses, he wouldn't run that well. He told you exactly how he was. If he'd done a good bit of work, he'd usually run to every pound of it. He was a great horse.
Would you get anyway sentimental now? I know the English are mad for this, but would you get sentimental when he died? Like,
oh, jeez, I was broken hearted.
Yeah.
Broken hearted here even talking about him.
Yeah.
Do you know? And even I hate the job even. Old Papillon died there during the year and Seabass. And I've Rinkaree now and he's 27. And someday I'm going to have to bring him down and call Mark McRedmond out of Anglesey to come and put him down because he's going to get old and he's grand at the moment. He's eating well, he's a rug on him and he's nice and warm and he's bucking around the field, and when I call him he comes over to me. But I'll go up to the field someday and call him and he won't come over because his appetite is gone. It's a real sign, if you're sick your appetite goes, and when you're old and ready to close the box, the appetite goes as well. Now you can't put humans down, but you have to put horses down. But there's humans would like to be put down as well too, not to be left suffering.
Absolutely.
So when I go up to feed him someday and he doesn't jog across the field to me where I feed him, I'll say, "You're at the end of the road, old man," and I have to put him down, and I'll be sad that day.
Yeah, I'm sure. It sounds like it is the whole circle of life.
It is, the circle of life is right, and I think that. Like, people give out about cruelty of racing and one thing. There's not the people involved, but from the great majority that I can talk about, 99%, there is the odd rogue, no matter what business you're in. Look after our horses, great. The people, and they feed them well and look after them and put an old rogue on them and brave enough to say, it's like your dog. The decision comes that he has to be put down.
That's Comanche Court there.
That's Comanche Court there, yeah. Oh, he was a gent.
The attachment that
a lot of nicer fella in the fellas holding on to him there. Yeah, I guarantee you.
The attachment that the stable workers have with them horses that they have to, that they mind day in, day out. You can't put a price on that. No. I often think they prefer them to humans nearly. Like, do you know what I mean?
And anyone could ride him at home. If you came down to me now and said, "I'd like to ride out something," but this is when he would stop riding. You could throw your leg up on him there and ride him around. I remember when he was finished, I used to ride him down to the Curragh when the lads would be going out to work, and I'd ride him down, and I'd stand there at the edge of the Curragh, and he'd watch horses galloping up, and he was just one of them sort of horses that you could give to anybody. Jennifer now, my eldest daughter, used to ride him a bit, and she didn't ride a lot, but she used to ride him away all the time. I was so sorry that he got a twisted gut. He was only 13, and he got a twisted gut, and we had to put him down. It was that or a huge operation that he mightn't have pulled out through. So Ned Gowan was the vet at the time, and he said, "Listen, you're going to put him through a lot of hardship for maybe not a nice outcome." So we just euthanized them, and that was it. But it was a rotten day.
I'm sure. Yeah. The racing life and the racing life that you've passed on happily to your kids, it seems.
Yeah, they like it. They were reared up in the yard. No pressure on them to come in or come out. They all liked it. They all like outdoor life. They all like a bit of sport in general. The lads played rugby. The girls were into everything else as far as sport goes, and they liked it. And
they're all pretty good at it as well.
And they all liked it. Yeah, they are.
Did Ruby play a bit of rugby? Did
yeah, Ruby played a bit of rugby.
Nace,
played with Nace. Yeah, Ted Coughlin, my brother-in-law. He ran the young youths and Joey Carberry's father was there at the time in Nace as well, and they were all there, and they loved playing it, and they played a bit of ga as well, but rugby mostly because that's what their cousins, the young Coughlins, were at as well too, so they were all at it. And Ted was in charge, and Katie was mad into their ponies from a very early age, animals and ponies, and loved it. Do you know what I mean?
And was there ever any time in your racing life when the recessions of the 80s weren't great, time for Irish sport that you thought, I need to get out of this
No.
and do something else?
Never thought of it.
Right, okay.
Never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Never even. I loved what I was doing. I was able to make a living at it. You mightn't have made as much. Things were tight. You cut down. Maybe didn't change the car as often as you should. Maybe didn't go on a holiday. All the things we were taught to. My father and mother taught me from like, make sure you can afford it before you buy it. Never got into debt too much for either property or land or houses. Saved a few quid. They always saved a few quid. Had a down payment on a house when I bought it. When I got married, Lakeland's houses were 11 grand. Now they ended up being, they're probably 300,000 now. That's when I moved into. But I saved up 4 grand and then got a loan. And that time the loan was 16%.
Yeah.
16%. Like,
That's the country you were in.
You know what I
like.
mean? That's the way we were in. But like, that's the way it was. You just saved up and buying a car as well too. Write a few old winners and put a few quid together and save it and buy a car.
When you can afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you could fairly afford it. You know what I mean? We weren't into that. So it didn't really, the recession didn't, obviously everything was tight, but we got through it.
Yeah.
Health is the big thing.
How much have you enjoyed the RT work down the years?
I enjoy it. I enjoy the lads I'm working with. I enjoy it. It's nice. It's easy. It's a sport I love, so it's very easy to talk about it. And I enjoyed it. The boss man when I went in was Tim O'Connor, and he was good to sort of stand behind you and everything else, and it was good. And that time they were trying to get in fellas from within sports to talk about the sport they were in. There was different fellas from different sports brought in that time, you know.
Yeah.
And Richard Pittman had been doing a bit of it for BBC. He was the first sort of ex-jockey to do it for BBC, and then they started here. I was doing it, and I enjoyed it. I was talking about sport I loved and horses and.
You're very
lads.
candid though. I don't think we'll ever get anyone like Ted in that. You have people go into the sport and they know everyone, so they'll say so much, but they won't say exactly what they think. But I don't think the filter really matters with Ted. It's like, this is how it is, and if you don't like it, go screw yourselves. And I think that's what really marked him out and made it so entertaining. And RT racing down the years, yourself and Robert.
Thanks for saying it,
Robert had like, you know, very kind of prim and proper, and he knew what Ted might come out with, and you know, and that dynamic was just great to watch. In fairness, and still is.
Well, I don't know, I suppose to get to the end of it now, but I mean, at some stage, you get to the end of everything, you get repetitious, but every dog has his day. I enjoyed it well, and but I love racing. I've raced all over the world. We used to go to the Breeders' Cups, 5 or 6 of us there. We went all over the world. We went to California and New York and Canada and Hong Kong and different places. We'd make 6 or 8 of us go off out to the, you know, and enjoy it. I enjoy the race and enjoy the lads that are involved in it. We talk about it, and the fellas I'm pally with, I'd ring them every day and something happened, and just like fellas would be involved in rugby or sport or whatever it is, like, you know.
They're your people.
They're your people is right, and that's what you like, and I love to see the fellas, and I get great satisfaction of a fella like Gordon Elliott now. Gordon Elliott, I know Gordon Elliott since he was knee-high to a grasshopper, a kid. He was pally with Jennifer and Jennifer Mullen when I knew him first. He rode a few Pint of Pint horses for me. Great fella. Then he went on, got a bit heavy for riding. Was an amateur, but a very good one. Went over to Martin Pipe, learnt his trade there well, came back, and he's been a phenomenal. Like, his father's a mechanic with a garage there in Summerhill. Like, no sort of financial background into racing, but he's done what he's done is absolutely phenomenal. I take me hat off to him. I think he's a star. No, I mean Willie Mullins the same way has broken everything. But
Willie
for
had
Gordon,
the background on.
Yeah, but Willie had a background to come into it. Now he brought it to you wouldn't imagine somebody that brought it to the level that his father brought it to, that his son could eclipse that completely.
Yeah.
I mean, Willie has just set the bar so high. Like, it's very hard to say there'll never be another Willie Mullins, because you never know, but I just, I'll tell you what, I won't see one anyway now. Johnny Ward might see one our age, young enough.
Would you have any worry that, you know, if you look at even the big handicaps now, that they've so many horses, that the days of Ted Walsh getting a very fancied run on the Paddy Power, or Peter Casey, or you know, Tom Foley, that it's so much concentration that, and it's the one worry you have for the National Hunt game, that it's becoming very, very hard to get a nice horse for the average man.
Yeah, you say that, Johnny, but again, I'm an older generation. I remember going to Ferry House Easter Monday. Every Easter Monday, Tom Draper would win the Irish National. For 9, 10 Easter Sundays in a row. And sometimes 4 of the 5 runners in the race, it'd be Tom Draper's. One would beat the other one. Splash and Carrefour or Last Link or Arker and Flying Bolt. You might have one out of the blue that might be second. And they dominated that scene. When I was a kid growing up, Paddy Slater and Tom Draper dominated it. Like, an ordinary small fella had no chance. You arrive into the bumper, the first thing they say to you, what is Slater in the bumper? What is Draper in the bumper? And like, no one even, there were odds on, and they'd win. And that'd be it. And people say, they'll dominate. But the thing rolls on, somebody else comes along, and somebody else comes along, and It just changed. At the moment, you'd say they're dominating it, and you look at the races, but it's always sort of dominated by
somebody.
one or two. We thought Kilkenny would never end in the hurling, but it did end.
I do think one thing we need in jumps racing is the likes of Denoli, Tom Foley, Peter Casey. I think we need a story that people, because Irish people want the underdog to succeed, and they want the farmer down the road who stumbled upon the horse that ended up with the small trainer who went on to win the Gold Cup. That's why I know we'll say Philip Reynolds didn't short for a few bob, but Pat Kelly having a horse in the middle of that sort of Galway that could be Gold Cup favourite. That means a lot to racing, I think, because
it's great for us.
It is great for us,
and it'll be great for everybody. I know Pat Kelly all his life as well too, and
a few words.
Man, a few words. Mad as a hatter at times, but a right fella and a real ability. I knew him when he was connected with different fellas along the line. Pat's a right fella, great horseman, knows exactly when all horse is right. That would be a great story. A great story if he could go and win a Gold Cup. But I don't know. It's like Coney Gree winning the Gold Cup for the Bradstocks. You have to have when that goes, it'll be a great story, but you need the backup of more of it as well too. But it'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, the industry probably needs those big ones to keep it going, and then it's up to us, I suppose, in the media as well to find other stories that actually.
Definitely, and there are a lot of stories in racing out there about like Jessica Harrington. She wins a Gold Cup in her 70s with her first runner. She wins her first Irish National the same year. Her hand is broken because she was out skiing, and she celebrated, I think, to win the Gold Cup by having a frozen pizza at home. You know, and these are the stories, and she'll get up in the next morning and do it all again, and she's in her 70s. You have Frank Oakes riding his two horses, and he rides them out at home. He's 77. You have Kevin Prendergast winning a Group 2 this year at 86, planning a classic campaign next year. 86, gave up cigarettes at 50. There's the stories we want to hear.
Paddy Mullins was in his late 60s before he was champion trainer. And he was champion trainer 7 or 8 times after that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, right. Late 60s, almost 70 years of age before he was champion trainer. And he was champion trainer 7 or 8 times after that.
That's mad.
There's nobody, racing people don't retire. They just die.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Such a fella died, he passed off, but that's his retirement. You don't die unless you're healthy. You don't retire, you just die.
Will you stay with us? Because we want to just talk about a couple of races that are coming up at the weekend. Johnny, you picked 2 at Ascot on Saturday that are the JLT hurdle and the Betfair Exchange Trophy. Will we start with the JLT?
Yeah, it's a tricky enough race because a lot of these the staying hurling division, and as Ted knows, it looks a bit kind of up in the air. Penhill won the race last year, but then he was destroyed by Faugheen. So we have, you know what I mean, Harry kind of rocking up again, and Sam Spinner, who won the race last year. And I think he's around 8-1. I think he might be worth chancing because he's cheapies on the first time. He has his ground. I don't know if Ted saw the race earlier. They're actually dialing off some of the hurdles today because of wind issues. I imagine tomorrow that'll be okay. But this horse will go out in front. He's very game.
Sam Spinner.
Sam Spinner. Yeah. He'll give you a good run for your money. Yeah. Now, he was disappointed at Cheltenham last year, Ted. I don't think he'll ever win a serious hurdle. But I think tomorrow, you know, the likes, you know what I mean, Harry Henderson has a horse in the race who's very likely race. Call Me Lord. He's stepping up in trip. It's his first run of the season. He'd have to be very good to win this. And obviously Sam Spinner, just if you could explain to cheek piece on for the first time, I'd say they're just implying that he just might need a bit of concentration levels, that maybe just at this stage of his life he just might need something to give him a little bit of a trigger. Why would you put cheek piece on a horse?
Well, cheek piece is going on a horse. A horse has peripheral vision. He can see behind him as well too. But I mean, a horse with cheek piece, it just stops him maybe if he's looking back to see what the opposition is, see what they're coming. You know, like that kind of thing. It's like years ago, you wouldn't remember, all the horses wore winkers because they wouldn't be frightened. If you see the Guinness horses, they always had winkers on them. Well, winkers are very like blinkers or cheek pieces. So he wouldn't, if something was coming from behind, it wouldn't frighten him.
Right.
And that's the reason. It's just so that concentrating on what's on in front, you don't want him looking back. And then when he might hear the sound, that he gathers the momentum before they actually get one. He can hear them coming, but he can't see them, and he gathers the momentum. Sometimes horses, I have a mare now, the one the other day at Dundalk, at Lafayette Hill, and she needs them because when horses get around her, she backs back.
Right.
She just, if the gap is getting tight, she's inclined to say, oh, won't make it here, a bit like a cowardly driver.
Right.
You know, you said you're behind him and said, for God's sake, drive on. And he said, oh, there's one on both sides of me. And next minute he pulls back, where there's plenty of room. Yeah. But he's afraid. Yeah. Thinks your man on the right is going to get him. And horses are like that as well. When the gap gets a little bit tight.
They obviously work. They
work on everything. They work.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. A few drivers should have them as well too.
The Betfair Exchange, there's a few here as well that I think people will remember from last year.
Yeah, well, this race was won last year by Hunter's Call, which a few of your colleagues remember, because he was owned by a cousin of mine, Michael Ward, who basically, you should see, Ted, what he came from. He came from nothing, like absolute poverty in East Galway. But his father, back in the day when they were in the bog, Michael and his brother Robert would be footing turf or turning turf, and his father would throw the water as far as he could into the horizon and say, once you reach the water you can drink it, and that takes a long time in the bog. But they worked hard, and Michael, they set up Warden Burke's, this construction crowd, and they've become like very wealthy men, but from nothing. And he owned a horse called Hunter's Call. He just got into racing, sold him on to Ollie Murphy in England. And I remember being on the show Saturday this time last year, telling Nathan he was worth a few bob each way. He was 16-1, and Nathan told me 10 minutes later he's after winning. His face went white because he was after winning the race. And Ollie Murphy's a horse tomorrow. I don't know if you remember the horse Five-Soul, Ted, that was with Owen Doyle. So he's having his first start for him. But the British handicapper, he won off 112 in Tipperary. He's 133 tomorrow, so it's 21
pounds.
And he's on soft ground. I think Flying Tiger is interesting. He won the Fred Winter 2 seasons ago. He was favoured county hurdle last year, disappointed, but he's gone back to his winning mark. Chester Williams is claiming 7, and I think at his price 14-20 he's interesting each way.
Tigers?
Flying Tiger.
Flying Tiger. Okay.
That's for tomorrow. And then obviously it's mad, there's no racing between Thurles tomorrow and Stevens Day in Ireland, which is as long a gap as you'll ever get in Irish racing. And I was kind of making the point earlier, like, it's great for the staff, but sure, a lot of them, they'll still be working anyway, they just won't be racing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they'll be at home, but at least and in fairness to HRI and the programme, Dundalk finishes at 8 o'clock tonight, just to give people a bit more ease going home.
Yeah. We are aiming to add to the €1,485 that we've raised for the Irish Injured Jockeys Fund with this week's charity bet from the Tote.com. We've got another €100 charity bet, Johnny. The pressure is on.
Mouse Morris, who you would have ridden against.
Yes.
So he's Mouse doesn't have the Jigginstown horses anymore, which is tough for him because he had a lot of success. But you know, I'll always defend Jigginstown in many ways, because I think they're results driven. They're not very sentimental, but they're great for the game because they keep their horse in Ireland. They might be harsh, but the horses run honourably and they run honestly. And in any event, Mouse wouldn't have the horses he had, but John Magner has this Last Man Standing. I think he's a lovely horse. 3 miles, beginner's chase tomorrow. I think he'll take a lot of beating. It's in the 12:15, and it'd be great for Mouse to have a winner at Christmas.
Straight up to win.
Mouse is a good fella. Mouse trained an English national winner, 2 Irish national winners, and a Gold Cup winner for Jigginstown.
That's amazing.
But that's not the first time. Something like, people are entitled to change. When Golden Miller, who won 5 Gold Cups, he had 3 different trainers.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I think they sent him with younger horses, but they are like Jigginstown are. It's results based, unfortunately. And like Tony Martin, you know, Sandra Hughes, there were plenty of horse trainers that had horses with them, and you know, they've kind of concentrated on 4 now, basically: Joseph, Henry, Noel Meade and Gordon will have the lion's share of them. I think they'll give horses to other people, but like, it's very different to JP, who'll more or less keep trainers in the game by giving them a few horses. Jigginstown are
just different way of looking
very,
at it.
very different, but you know, if everything was the same, it'd be boring, I suppose.
We were outside, Ivan Yates sidled up to you and was asking about Leopardstown, just to chat to you. This is the time of the year where everybody's looking forward to, like, Leopardstown at Christmas has a special, just a bang of Christmas off it.
And Leopardstown at Christmas is the first time that all the real good horses, whether you're in England or Ireland, will clash or go for the big pots. You have the Christmas Hurl, and you have the King George at Kempton, and you have the Welsh National at Chepstow. Huge pots, huge races.
Talk that Ruby might be going to Limerick as well on Stevens Day.
Limerick, there's a grade 1 at Limerick this year now, and he's going down there to ride Get a Bird, who was impressive at Punchestown. Likes to go right-handed. It's a grade 1. It's equivalent to the one at Leopardstown. The 2 mile one is 2 mile and 3. Like, if he jumps to clear round, he should be hard to beat.
Have you any advice for Ruby with the way he's been a little bit picky and choosy now because he's getting older and he's had ferocious injuries? Ruby broke his leg, came back at Cheltenham and broke it again the following day, and people just say, sure, it is what it is. Like, if that was everyday life, you'd be like, this lad is going off to a war or something. But have you any sort of advice for him this season, or have you advised him on, like, Charlie obviously was riding over hurdles towards the end of his career, or were you sort of saying go flat out as you always were before? Or
I wouldn't say. I'd say you can't mind yourself. I mean, Ruby's most serious injuries have happened over hurdles. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt. The good horse that he rode, Celestial Halo, He broke his arm and ribbons off of him at Liverpool. He broke his leg off of Let's Dance at Punchestown over hurls.
BCL as well, was he?
In the Triumph.
Yeah.
They're over hurls. You get a worse fall over hurls you do over fences.
Because they're so fast.
They are, and you're not expecting that.
It.
No, I wouldn't. Listen, Ruby is 39 years of age. I don't give him any. If he wants advice off me or rings me about something, we chat every day, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. But if he was in any doubt about something, he might ring me and ask me, and we talk about it. But I wouldn't. You can't pick and choose. I'd say that he's no chance of being champion jockey this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's still going to get a bit more selective. Willie's a bit more selective as well with him. Doesn't want him riding horses that have no chance. The other day he was going to ride something in England. Undessu.
Yeah.
And somebody wanted him to ride something in the first at Sandown. And Willie said no. He said, I have no Paul Townend sitting inside in the wear room. So I said, if you get knocked out, he said, who's going to ride Undessu?
How good is Townend, do you think?
Townend is as good as there is.
Yeah.
Paul Townend is a top class jockey in every sense of the word, physically, mentally, and every step of the way. Paul Townend is as good as it gets. All Paul Townend needs, like any of them do, is to get on the good horses. And Jack Kennedy is similar as well too. As a young fella, I haven't seen any better. You know.
Yeah. Is there a part of you that kind of is really looking forward to the day when your kids stop riding professionally and competitively?
I suppose there is.
Yeah.
I suppose safety factor. I suppose when they get hurt, you say, Jesus, I mean, that's an unnatural thing. That's a fatherly thing. I mean, you don't want them to get hurt. But I know where Ruby's coming from. Like, Ruby knows well that when he says the time is up, there will never be another thing in his life, sporting-wise, that'll give him the kick he's getting out of what he's doing at the moment.
Yeah.
The kick. When you come back down there at Cheltenham after winning a good race and you're coming back down there, the adrenaline, and Katie's the same way. Katie is going to miss it terribly as well too, because like those days, and both of them, you don't miss it if you were riding the last couple of years and you hated what you were doing, but you were only doing it because it was a job. It's like a fella who loves the job and a fella who's sick of it. Like, he doesn't really mind if he gives it up because he's sick of it anyway.
Yeah.
But the fellow who loves the job and he's told, I'm sorry, your contract is terminated.
That's the quandary for Ruby, because Ruby, in my view, should go out sort of nearly when he's as good as he was, rather than if you regress 10% and then you're not as good as you were, because he shall always be remembered for, in my mind, the best national hunt jockey I've ever seen anyway. We're privileged to have Carberry, to see Carberry riding over a fence and putting a tricky horse to sleep. So I think Ruby's challenge when eventually he does retire would be like AP McCoy, where he says, I'm going to go out at my right time to go out, kind of.
Yeah, McCoy doesn't seem like he's retired happily though.
He was obsessed, like, so he's never going to really be the same outside of the saddle. I even met Paul Carberry at the HRI Awards, and you can see that the twinkle in his eye is half gone, because he's in that stage of life now where you have to get on with it.
Yeah.
And then mortality and age will catch up with us all, like.
Yeah, I hope he gets, as you say, I hope he gets out sound. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Sound, whether he redresses or not, that's up to himself. I mean, to get out at the top, because the likes of me or Johnny Ward or you think he should get out at the top. I thought Mick Canaan the last couple of years wasn't maybe riding as well as when I saw him riding early on, but yet he stuck it out to see the stars, and you couldn't ask for a horse to get a better ride than he got in the Arc.
Yeah.
You know, he rode him, and then he said, that's enough now.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, you've got everybody, they're grown men, they make their own decisions, not what we decide on them, do you know what I mean?
No, for sure. Is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to at Leopardstown over Christmas?
I'm looking forward to some great racing. I think there's 4 or 5 races in particular that are going to be cracking races. There's a good novice chase there on the first day. I'm looking forward to a few of Willie's novices coming out, and Gordon's as well. I'd like to see that Delta work, I'd like to see him run over 3 mile. I think he's a hell of a horse. Megley Can, and Willie's filly in the 2 mile. I think what do you call them is going to be a good. Saville's race is going to be a good race. You have
Road to Respect,
and all them, and the Jigginstown filly.
Shattered Love.
Shattered Love. Do you know what I mean? And you have Bell's Hill, and then you have Annie. What's her name again? The good mare. The one, the Fairy House, Anna Jigginstown mare.
Yeah, she's the mare's hurdles favourite.
And you have Super Sunday, and you have Faheen taking one another on.
That could be a hell of a race. I was only talking about her earlier. She's her name is.
You can't think of her name, and you're only young.
This is bad.
This is bad.
Going on 36. She's if herself and Faheen, like, 'cause I think Faheen Fahina's only run once at 3 miles, and he produced one of the best forms I've ever seen over 3 miles. So if he could reproduce that, now I don't think it was a fluke of Punchestown. So like Penhill came up, had every chance, and he absolutely beat him 11 lengths. So if she can. Apple Jade can.
Jade, you got her good man.
I'm not sure she's up to that performance over 3 miles. But we'll see. It'll be some race. Super Sunday as well.
Like she's as good as she was at Fair. I haven't seen a better performance by a mare other than Annie Power.
20 lengths. Have you won over the Christmas Worth?
I have. I think Kildare might run a novice handicap hurl there. He's 12 or 14 pound lighter over hurls than he is over fences. He'd have a chance in the novice handicap. And I'm hoping Annie Second now runs a good race in the Paddy Power. He's got it all.
He get the trip, Ted?
I don't know. I think he will. I hope he will.
If he gets the trip, he's very interesting.
Yeah, I have a chance of about 11 stone in that. But he has another one of JP's to beat. The name escapes me. It was very impressive the last day.
Like Annie Second now, a lad has asked me for Christmas, and he'd been campaigned over 2 miles, and he was a really good novice hurdler for he won his maiden at a big price, and then he won was it Punchestown at Ferry House the next day, beat a good horse of Willie's. But if he stays the 3 miles, and Ted thinks he will. Like he's definitely one of the feasible horse in the race because he's a second season novice, and he could have a bit in hand in a race in which you wouldn't have much in hand.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for any second now. Ted, it's a life less ordinary. It's been brilliant getting back into some of the genealogy and kind of fully understanding exactly where it was. You've been so generous with your time, so thanks very much for joining us.
It was a pleasure to be here.
And have a great Christmas to you and the family, and to you, Johnny.
Thanks, sure.
Hopefully we picked a winner for you this week as well. A reminder that Friday Night Racing is brought to you in association with GoRacing.ie. You should check out that website if it is your intention to go to any of the racing over the Christmas festival. All the details are available there, and we will see you next week. Good luck. Have a great Christmas.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at GoRacing.ie.